This episode of The Startup Life is tucked in nice and tight by Stein and the Stein Sleep Bracelet. Startup Nation, getting quality sleep is super important, especially for those of us as entrepreneurs. I know for me, if I don't get enough quality sleep, not only do I not perform well while working in my business or exercising, but also it really affects my mental health and that doubt starts to creep in. And that's the last thing we want as entrepreneurs. Also, with everything going on, good quality sleep is important to repair the body and support a good immune system. And that is why, Startup Nation, I wear the Stein Sleep Bracelet. The Stein Sleep Bracelet uses natural frequency technology to reinforce our biomagnetic field to improve deep sleep, length of sleep, and overall sleep quality. This helps produce a healthier heart, regulate weight control, and helps strengthen the immune system, which helps destroy bacteria and viruses. Right now, when you go to philipstein.com, use code SLEEPEZ and you will get 10% off the entire store. That's promo code SLEEP, capital E, capital Z. So if you are ready to be more productive in leading your business, go with the Stein Sleep Bracelet, proven to be natural and safe to give you a better, deeper sleep.
It's time to be about that life, the startup life. Here's your host, Dominic Lawson.
All right, Startup Nation, so I hope you're ready to receive some value today. My name is Dominic Lawson, and this is The Startup Life, the show for entrepreneurs and career-minded professionals. You know, Startup Nation, it's no secret that these past few months have been long, scary, uncertain, thought-provoking, and nothing short of unprecedented. Watching friends lose jobs, seeing people divided by politics, race, and feeling the effects of COVID. I know we're definitely all feeling that. And that's why today's guest created an organization whose mission is to lift spirits, offer levity and laughter, and elevate social sharing. I'm kind of getting over this social distancing thing, but maybe that's just me. He is a serial entrepreneur and has founded numerous successful startups. He majored in Chinese at BYU. We're going to talk about that a little bit. And along with a very famous co-founder, he created the venture BooSocki, a first of its kind sock brand working to bring local artists to the forefront while offering a unique gifting service that allows you to boo your friends and family by sending them an unexpected pair of socks that will make them giggle and squirm with delight. He is the one and only Taylor Shupe. T. Shupe, what's going on, boss?
Yeah, you're the man. Thanks, Dominic. Appreciate that warm introduction.
No worries, man. Look, man, are you ready to pour some knowledge in the Startup Nation? Because we can sure use some help today.
Hey, I'm going to try. I got a limited knowledge base, but I'm very happy to try.
For sure. So you know what, man? Let's just start here. Just kind of share your origin story a little bit, if you don't mind, T. Shupe.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh gosh, man. I've always been an entrepreneur since I was a little kid. So for Christmas, I wasn't asking for Batman toys. I was asking for cotton candy machines, rock tumblers, lemonade machines, snow cone machines, right? So I was always trying to make $1 here or there.
Gotcha.
And so, entrepreneurship was always at the center of my life. And I started my first company out of college. It was called ISIS.
Okay.
It was my first real company. Yeah, gotcha. I still own those trademarks. And ISIS was a consumer electronic brand. And what we were doing is we were bringing electronic accessories to market that combined art and science. Mm-hmm. So we're working with, local graphic artists. We're also working with musicians and athletes on product that told a cool, expressive story, looked good, but they're also super functional. Mm-hmm. And so I did that in 2006, I believe. Gotcha. And then that became Blacksmith Manufacturing, which I sold. Then I started a company called Stance, which is all about bringing same notion, right? Like bringing expression to commoditized product, and we were pretty methodical about it. I mean, socks are about as generic as it gets. Right. There's been a race to the bottom over years and years and years, and I just love those opportunities. I love looking at these product offerings that lack innovation and maybe aren't focusing on the consumer needs anymore. They're really just focusing on price point and accessibility and adding some color and some functionality and comfort.
Gotcha.
So yeah, that one was fun, man. Stance was a good one. At one point, we were the most valuable sock company in the U.S. and it's just cool to be able to develop products in a very vertical way.
Right.
You know, build my own factory, and you know, we did a lot of amazing products with, you know, organizations like the NBA on court socks and MLB on field socks, and of course the you know, the music and the art thing, which I was used to, and that was one that opened up a lot of doors for us, and opened up my mind too to like, what other things can I do that not only can be, you know, profitable, but can be more outward in, like things that can address social stances and, you know, environmental stances, and just like, you know, I don't know, you get to a point where you're just like, all right, you made some money, you feel good about providing for your basic needs. You're like, how do I self-actualize? How do I, you know, like create more meaning for myself? And then you realize, wait, like as I self-actualize and I'm doing something that's good, the money just kind of comes.
Right.
And so that's sort of where I'm at. And, you know, that's why we decided to do BooSocki. It's like, you know, a byproduct of what was happening in the macro environment. People are despondent. I mean, I'm sure you know how it's been.
Absolutely.
It's been kind of awful, man. So, you know, this is about like,
it sucks. Yeah.
It's
been pretty bad.
Dude, it totally sucks.
Right.
Yeah.
For
and I'm
sure.
like, hey, I own a sock factory, right? And the sock factory for me was, it's been an amazing endeavor because, well, first off, textile manufacturing is $11 trillion industry. This is a massive industry.
Absolutely.
And it's also like the most polluted. I mean, second to big oil, right?
Interesting.
And you also have this culture of of exploitation of human capital, people. And I'm like, wow, you know, if I could disrupt the model of like lowest investment wins, you know, and lowest investment is going to create the most, you know, favorable competitive advantage with, you know, this notion that you know, if you create a workplace people love to go to, if you provide education, if you provide, you know, workers benefits, you'll actually be more competitive, right? Even though your cost base is high.
Right.
And so, you know, that was the whole mission behind FutureStitch, and then you know, that thing has proven to work, which has been great. And then you know, and that was sort of the genesis to doing the BooSocki thing. So I'm like, hey, I own my own factory. Why not produce product in, you know, 7 days or less? And it's never been done before, right? It's like a sort of a, you know, this idea that we could leverage our supply chain to be as competitive as possible and match the product to the actual topical, you know, things that are happening, social issues that are happening, in a way that just you can't compete with. So.
Right, for sure.
You know, it's always a dance with the devil. There's always, you know, pros and cons and struggles. You know, one day you feel like you're walking into the valley of death, and your business is gonna, you know, implode. And then, you know, you're persistent, and these new doors open up. And fortunately for me, I've had some nice luck, man, and good opportunity. And I've realized that as I focus on the market and I act quick, you know, I always seem to end up, you know, back on my feet. For sure. So pretty blessed in that regard.
Absolutely. No, I definitely understand what you mean. The parent company for the startup life is Owls LLC. Is an education consulting firm. So we write curriculum and do professional development with like teachers and nonprofits and stuff like that. But like, you know, we had a whole bunch of contracts lined up from March to June because that's our busy season. And so obviously when COVID hit, it's just like all that just, you know, fell through, you know what I mean? So, you know, it sucks. Sure. You know, it sucks, you know, but that's the nature of the game. And you know, we've been able to kind of slowly rebound and stuff like that with schools starting to reopen and stuff like that. So slowly but surely, you know, you get back to it. And, but you know, it's been a little rough, but you know, you roll with the punches, you know what I mean? You roll with the punches.
Dude, you know, that's it. You know what? This variability that's come into the macro environment, I think it'll be good for us long term. I'm not trying to discount all the loss of life and all the horrible things,
of course not, no.
all the shit people's going through, right? Like this is real. This is real.
Right.
But what I am saying is like having that fluidity is actually important for innovation.
Right.
And, you know, as long as you have that right mindset of thinking of how you can sort of roll with that, to your point, roll with the punches, build something that is fluid, you know, I think that it's going to make you much better off to form offensive strategies in the future. I mean, those are the groups right now, they're innovating, creating new products, and new innovations, they're going to win long term.
Absolutely.
If they can figure out how to like thrive in this chaotic environment, they're going to thrive when it's peacetime.
Right,
so
sure.
yeah, that's what I'm trying to do.
No, for sure. And I appreciate you sharing that. And Startup Nation, Taylor just said something that I think we need to put on the back of our mind and put in your entrepreneurial kit. Fluidity is important for innovation. That's extremely important. I appreciate you dropping that nugget on us, man.
Yeah, no, of course.
For sure. So I wanted to ask you this, man. I want to go back just a little bit because you talked about, when you were a kid, you always had that entrepreneurial gene. You didn't want a Batman party, you wanted a snow cone machine. Where does that come from? Were like your parents entrepreneurs? Were they, was it something you saw? Like, tell me a little bit about your childhood there.
You know what it was, man? I think I had such a like orthodox upbringing.
Okay.
Where I had lots of rules and lots of constraints that like it pushed me, to question probably more than most kids.
Right.
I'm not trying to discount biological stuff, right? Yeah, I have my great grandfather commercialized radar and was like, worked with MIT scientists to bring radar into U.S. service planes in World War II.
Gotcha.
Like, we have an entrepreneurial past in the family, which is something I'm proud of.
Right.
And I'm sure there's some biological characteristics there, but I think more than that is like I was set up in an environment that was highly controlled, and I just needed to question it all. Like I just felt like there was more out there, and entrepreneurs. I think entrepreneurs are often born into that sort of situation.
Gotcha.
Right? Something that's really confining, and they're like looking for an exit, right? Like, hey, what do I do here to be free?
Right.
And that was me. I was the kid always questioning every single rule, and I know it drove my parents crazy. And I got 3 kids
Right.
now, and I'm doing the same thing because so obviously there is some biological here, and it karma's a bitch, right?
Right.
But no, I mean, I think that was like feedstock for me, right? Like into my entrepreneurship. And my dad was a lawyer, and he's by the book. And I whenever I had to do whenever I wanted to do anything that was against a rule or a plan, I had to write an essay, and I had to create a persuasive argument
Gotcha.
on why this rule should be broken. And he was my judge and jury. And I will give him credit that he gave me, he allowed me to win when I presented a good logical case. And so that helped me a lot in forming my approach to business, which is, I would say I follow a method as much as I possibly can.
Right.
But I feel like you can't have an absolute method, because then when there is some variability, you don't know what to do. And plus, when you have like an absolutistic mindset in business, it's very easy for other people to form a defense against that. They know how you're going to operate.
That's true.
Just like in sports.
Right.
Right. Like you look at Michael Jordan, and that's, this guy like played a certain way, and groups like the Pistons, I mean, they formed an amazing defense because they figured him out.
Absolutely.
It wasn't that variability. And it wasn't until Phil Jackson came in and was like, hey, MJ, this is how we're going to do it. We're going to build up the team. We're going to change the offensive strategy here, that the Lakers really started winning and taking those titles. So, I think you constantly got to be shifting. And my shift was like, I got to shift around all of these like very confining things, the curfews, I grew up in a very strict Mormon household, right? So,
gotcha.
a lot of very strict things that ultimately, taught me some amazing values. Don't get me wrong. And I would never take back that upbringing for any reason whatsoever. But really it was a feedstock into, how I think and plan these days.
I appreciate that. And I appreciate the part you talked about where, you had to write an essay to make a compelling argument to break those rules. I think a lot of times in entrepreneurship, we have an idea and we just kind of move forward with it. You know what I mean? But I feel like that type of practice and that exercise allows you to think a little bit deeper, a little bit more, right? It kind of goes back to your example with, Jordan, right? He could, for the longest time, he couldn't get past the Pistons, right? But Phil Jackson comes along, helps, kind of shift and change that thinking. And with that exercise you talk about, I think you kind of do the same thing. And like you said, people don't know how to attack that, because, you know, you're deep in thinker, you're thinking deeper, you know, and a little bit beyond just, you know, what you're trying to accomplish. So I appreciate you sharing that, man. I think Startup Nation, you might want to consider putting that in your entrepreneurial toolkit, you know, creating that essay to kind of, you know, I think some people probably call it a business plan, but, you know, it is what it is, right? But I think you might want to add that to your entrepreneurial toolkit. So I appreciate you sharing that, Taylor.
Thanks, bro.
No worries.
Yeah, you know, I just feel like, I'm methodical, right? Well, when we went into socks, you know, people thought we were crazy. They're like, okay, you have this brand that was doing well, and you sold your business, and you have this money, you have other founders, you've done, you know, pretty big things. Yeah. Why socks? And, you know, I'd call people, and I'd be like, hey, yeah, I'm starting this stock company. And they'd be like, stock company? What's a stock company? Yeah, and they would say, I'm talking equities, right? They thought nobody even, like, understood why we would even approach that. And they thought it was a waste of talent. And I'm getting the same thing now with BooSocki, to be honest. Man, I got this, like, you know, 5-star facility, best in class in knitting. And they're like, dude, why are you not doing socks for Tom Ford or Gucci? Right. You know, and I'm like, hey, that luxury to me is hollow. Like, I think I'm doing a lot more with BooSocki. Right. Now, I love fine product, don't get me wrong, but like what we're doing and bringing comedic value and, you know, elevating the sociality of you know, of product sharing to me is a much greater feat, right? And rewarding feat than doing, you know, some ultra fine merino, mercerized cotton twisted double cylinder, you know, dress sock that's sold, you know, in Neiman. Right. So anyway, I just feel like it's important to do, it's important to plan, and it's important to have your if then, you know, like, hey, this is going to happen. This is my B, this is my C. And that's just how I try to operate. But when we're looking at socks, man, like, I mean, I had 100 different categories. We were looking at, like, our top 5 were sunscreen, toothpaste, luggage. Away really did a good one with that one, right? Yeah, we had a ton of different categories we're looking at. But I set my variables, right? And I created a spreadsheet where I'd weigh these things appropriately. I want to make sure there was a flywheel. You know, there was consumption. I want to make sure it worked for e-com. I want to make sure I was going to get high SKU productivity. Stock stretch. You create one stock, you know, one size. You can fit like 90% of male adults, 90% of female adults. I want to make sure I had the gross margins. I want to be able to, you know, use it as a tool for acquisition with a very low price point. You see socks, it's not going to break the bank versus, you know, seeing sneakers or whatever, you know, which costs a lot more. Right. And I wanted to do something that, you know, that was going to get attention. I think that's important, right? It's very easy in a commoditized space to create a value added winner, create something super special, because everybody's just focusing on the, you know, the dollars in the yarn, dollars in your direct labor cost. Right. You know, and that's it. The consumer's been conditioned to think of it as a discardable product. But, you know, so when we started this, nobody even understood it. They thought, like, okay, how are you going to make any money? And quite frankly, I didn't know. I mean, this was a hypothesis. Like, is it actually going to happen? Are we going to make money or not? I had no idea. But you know what I always had? I had good people, fun people. You know, I was able to create a rad culture, and that is, you know, as important as the product you create, I think. Absolutely. So I thought, hey, worst case scenario, this thing fails. Who cares? I'm working with rad ass people, having a lot of fun. And I'm not going to, you know, take a minute of it for granted. And lucky for us, it was successful. For sure. For sure. Thank you for sharing all of that. And that brand, Startup Nation, is BooSocki. BooSocki.com. We have a link there in the show notes for easy access if you listen to the replay on the podcast. And, you know, when you talk about BooSocki, Taylor, it goes back to what you were saying earlier, that self-actualization piece. Yeah, you could make socks for Tom Ford and sell it in Neiman's or Nordstrom's or whatever case may be. But I think the thing is that, like, you know, when you have like the funny sayings and the cartoons and stuff like that, you know, I think it lightens the load. It lightens the mood, especially with everything going on, you know, and you can do something so simple with socks. You know what I mean? So I definitely see the angle there you're talking about, and that it really works with the self-actualization piece that you were talking about. And I just want to say I appreciate the 2 pair. I got the I Need Space and the King, which is just so dope.
by the way.
Thanks, man.
No worries. And they feel nice too. They're not just, looking cool, Startup Nation, but they actually feel really well. But kind of talk about the company a little bit more, man, and what you got going on. And I love how you have like the part where you have artists kind of being featured alongside the socks and stuff. Kind of talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so we're using comb cotton. The toes are all seamless. We're adding even some additional utility with terry loop in the toe and heel to make it even more comfortable. I didn't want to make a crap product.
Of course not.
Even though it's more about the experience and the feel, of the share, the boo. I like the thing about the sock is it provides a lot of delight for people. When you put on a fresh pair of socks, it actually provides more delight than any other article of apparel besides underwear. And we've done like extensive testing on it. In fact, I'm sitting with the head of human performance at Stanford University, this guy Brandon Marcello, and he's like, and I'd never met him before. Our trainer brought him into my office, and he's like, "Hey, I want to do a deal with you and our athletes." And I'm like, "Okay, well, why socks and why stands?" And he's like, "In my testing, there's nothing that elevates morale after an intense workout than a fresh pair of socks." I was like, "No way!" I'm like, "Not a cup of Gatorade even?" And he's like, "No, man, it's socks. It's a fresh pair of socks." And so there's something to it, right? To that feel that you get when you have a properly fitting, really comfortable, tactile, pleasing pair of socks. And so, I wanted to embody that in an emotional way, in a visual way too, right? And the comedy side, I think, lends value to it. I think, working with Rob Drydek, who's one of my best friends,
absolutely.
and co-investor on plenty of projects, has been a real treat. Dude, he's a comedic genius. And, our plan is to roll out a bunch of different series with other comedians. We talked to Red Canvas for this because you can show as much of that comedy as you want. You can wear it with, your dress slacks and you don't need to show it, right? Or you can hike up your jeans and show it. You can wear them with shorts. I mean, it's just a little bit more of a controllable canvas. It's not like you're throwing it on a t-shirt.
Right.
So you get your market size is bigger for something like this. And plus I just feel like it's really fun because you have a left and a right. And so you can work with meme topics, which typically include two different components, picture and verbiage, or, you can work with just all sorts of double entendres, which is fun and witty. And so I think the canvas is right for social sharing. Plus it's just affordable, right? Which is an important part of social sharing. But where BooSocki comes in a very unique way, other than just being a, premium, artistic, comedic sock brand, is the shareability component, where you can send it to, you buy booze, 6-pack of booze, 12-pack of booze, and you can pre-program, right, friends' birthdays or your anniversary or Mother's Day or Father's Day or whatever, and you can write a hint, and then you log in, your friend gets it, they scan the QR code, it comes up with the hint, they got to type the right answer and know who sent it to them, and so it kind of makes like a scavenger hunt, right, and they can boo back, but at $15 with a new subscription thing that we're rolling out, like $9, $10 a month, to have an element of communication, but also a nice gift, right? Think irreverent sort of comedic hallmark, plus an article of apparel that somebody can wear. It's going to fit. You don't have to really put that much thought into it, right? It's like ultimate convenience to me, combined with obviously something that's really comfortable and going to last for a long period of time. And that to me is it's a winning proposition
for sure. And I love the designs. And the thing is it's simple, but so awesome, right? Because socks are nothing more than a template, and you saw that as a template.
Right.
You do different things. Startup Nation, I'm on the website right now, and I'm loving these cheat socks for back to school, right?
Yeah.
Those are really those are really dope. But you talked about no worries. You talked about working with Rob on this venture. Kind of talk about how you guys work together. What you've learned from each other and stuff like that.
Yeah, totally. Well, I guess I gained respect for Rob Drydek the first time I pitched him in 2009 to invest in our brand, and at that point we had. So one of the things that I did differently at Stance was I brought celebrities or people with influence onto our cap table, and I didn't pay them, right? So we had the Rock Nation crew, you know,
Right,
and
right.
Jay-Z and Rihanna and whatnot, and Wayne Wade, James Harden, you know, Invest, Will Smith. These guys invested, and then they became obviously became shareholders, but they became like they carried an ownership cap, you know, and they talked about it authentically,
Mm-hmm.
and it felt real, it felt good, and they enjoyed it, and they didn't, you know, require all of these endorsements. Now, we didn't tell them what to say, of course,
Right.
but they naturally became brand ambassadors because they were shareholders. So I highly recommend that as you considering, you know, people are considering going out and, you know, creating brands, is to work with people who are like-minded, share culture, who have influence, get them involved on the equity side.
Absolutely.
But, you know, anyway, I digress. So I went into Fantasy Factory. That was his show at the time.
Right.
And to be honest, I didn't really watch the show, but I knew Rob from skateboarding. And, you know, I roll in there and I'm pitching him on this thing. And I dropped the Rock Nation name. In fact, I dropped Jay Brown, who's a good friend of mine. He's the chairman there.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, I don't give a fuck about Rock Nation. Like, why are you name dropping? Why are you name dropping up in here?
Right.
I'll show you the door, you know? And
Right.
I'm like, oh, damn. I normally don't get put in my place that quickly. At least I try not to,
Right.
you know?
Right.
And immediately I was like, wow, I actually respect the bluntness of this guy.
Absolutely.
It didn't come off like an asshole. It actually came off like, hey, I'm going to tell you exactly what my opinion is. Take it or leave it. And I know you want something from me, and you better get your story right. And I appreciated that level of candor.
For sure.
And I laughed. I laughed right then and there. I'm like, okay, I see how it is. All right, let's regroup here. And I did my pitch all over again without it. And he was actually so impressed. He's like, okay, let's do a deal, and I'll put the money in.
Right.
You know, fast forward a few years later, Stan's become successful. Like, hey, let's go on a trip together. He had a fiance at the time. It was very similar to my wife, fantastic girl. And then we did family vacation. We raced some cars. And we just realized that we had a lot of the same energy. We felt like we had a lot of the same interests.
Right.
And we both wanted to both wanted to do big things. And he has, man. This guy actually, I mean, he's known to be a TV personality, reality TV show star, but he actually has better business acumen than almost any VC I've ever dealt with. I mean, he's actually very savvy.
He is
And
lauded
so,
for
you
that
know,
quite often, for sure. No, you're absolutely right.
Yeah. No, the guy's actually he's really legit. And you know, he's developed a system. He has a fund that, he, you know, uses to invest in a bunch of startups. He has a very strict, investment mix. And we could never really do anything other than that Samsung, because you know, my businesses just didn't fit into his criteria.
Gotcha.
But then we're just talking about, like, you know, the way to the world and getting together and where we can go and hang out. And it's just like, damn, this is like, just feels depressing.
Mm.
And I'm like, hey, why don't we utilize my factory and do something really fun? And, you know, utilize your brain for the comedic content, you know, and mine for the manufacturing and product development, and create something. And literally 3 months later, we had a website, a product line, everything all done.
All
And
right.
that sort of thing usually takes over a year, usually around 18 months or so. But I'm like, hey, let's launch with minimal viable product. Let's test the market out. Let's get something out there now, because the situation is real right now.
Right.
And, you know, fortunately, it seems to be working, but there's just so many advancements we have planned that I get really excited. I'm thinking about, like, 2 months from now, 3 months from now, what BooSocki is coming out with, and the tech and the collaboration and the wholesale distribution plan and everything. I think this thing's, you know, it's going to be real. I mean, we've been out for like 45 days, and that's it. And it's gotten some great attention. Obviously appreciate that it got your attention.
Absolutely.
I was really honored by this call, because, you know, I think that it's worthy of discussing. I think it's something that more entrepreneurs should be considering. They should be considering what's happening in the macro environment, and how they create something that can actually help in some way, shape, or form. I'm not talking about just like donating to, like, you know, Red Cross.
Right.
But, you know, I'm talking about, like, really, like, touching communities, community building, touching people in an intimate way. I think that's really valuable.
Right. And the thing is, first of all, look, everybody wears socks, right? For the most part, right? And
Right.
so you're helping people on a social level. It's like, you know, like I, you know, was talking at the top of the show, we're all social distancing, but, you know, what's wrong with social sharing? And I think that's what attracted me to the brand and wanted to have you on the show because look, man, like the world's tough right now. I mean, as if the world wasn't tough before, it's a lot tougher now. And so if you can like take a moment to just kind of, put a smile on somebody's face or allow them to kind of show their personality a little bit with a pair of socks, man, like that's golden. Right. That's golden to a lot of people. And so I respect the hell out of that, man.
Thanks, bro.
No worries.
Appreciate that a lot.
Oh, no, of course. I wanted to ask you something really quickly, Lo, because you talked about building a factory from the ground and having your own factory and stuff like that. So I want to ask you kind of a two-part question a little bit. When you decided to build that factory, why not because a lot of people, they kind of do that where they have somebody kind of create that stuff for you. Did you want to have control of the process? And on top of that, have you been having issues? Because I know a lot of people have been having kind of supply chain issues these days. Have you been running into issues like that? Kind of talk about that a little bit.
Sure. Yeah. So I see owning my own facility as a massive competitive advantage.
I hear that.
What it provides me is it allows me to control and own the margin all the way from raw materials to a finished good, and ultimately, if I'm going to BDC, the margin all the way to the end consumer. And so that's important. Not strictly because I think it, creates more, bottom line profitability. Mm-hmm. That's important. Don't get me wrong. Right? You got to become self-sufficient as a business. But more in that I could add more value to that product and not destroy my margin.
Right.
Right. So like it's the difference between say a Zara and a Gap. 10 years ago or 15 years ago, market cap's about the same, similar business, models. We got lots of direct consumer retail. There's a few differences, but the main one, in my opinion, is that Zara owned their own factories. Gap didn't. Mm. Gap had to go to market around 18 months. Zara had to go to market around 2 months. And so they were able to deliver product much quicker, of course, and therefore the, product was more on trend. But even more than that, because they own the margin of the factory, they were able to increase the thread count. Right. They were able to increase the stitches per square inch. They were able to do things that made a better quality product, so the end user was more satisfied. Therefore, they drove their consumer lifetime value to a point that Gaps can compete. And now, I mean, what is it? It's probably there's probably 20x spread between the two.
Something like that.
You got Gap at like $4 billion. I mean, it went up after the Ye deal.
Right.
But you got $4 billion or so. And Intedex, Zara's parent company, is probably at 80, something like that. Anyway, there's a huge difference here, that was created mainly because they had a supply chain that they owned and they controlled. And there's also one other element. You don't see this much in Zara, in fast fashion per se, but it's the innovation unlocks. So if you're actually running your own production, right, you're touching those fibers, you're touching the machine, you're able to discover like a lot more in terms of possibilities for improvement. And so, that was another thing for me, of course. Mm-hmm. And I want to get into manufacturing thing anyway, because of just the impact that I could potentially make. We use the number one architect in China to design this thing. It looks more like an art gallery rather than a factory. There's a gym, there's a library, there's a art gallery, there's a beautiful cantina, there's a basketball court. Like it looks more like a tech company than, like a factory. I use a quarter of the concrete, right? I have the highest environmental rating of any other knit factory. Right. And we were able to do all this. One, because I control the whole value chain, so I could invest more and I know I could get it back.
Right.
Obviously there's a real marketing story here that can create value. Mm-hmm. But more than that, I retain people. Mm. And in a manufacturing environment, retention is critical. It's a key part of your productivity. My average retention when I bought that original facility was 13 months, but I saw a huge productivity swing from 1 year to 2 years. So if I keep them there and I keep them happy, right, they're going to stay. I pay them above market wage. They're going to stay. Not only are they going to stay, but they're going to work freaking hard and they're going to be stoked.
Absolutely.
They're going to give their ideas more willingly. They're going to be more vested because they know what the alternatives are. And more than that, like from a personal perspective, I just feel like we're making a big difference in that space. Like,
Right.
there have been so many new facilities that have been created after we built ours that are trying to match or mirror what we've been doing because we've proven out this hypothesis. You don't need to exploit, the labor. You can pay them above market. And there is a tangible benefit to investing in your infrastructure, making it nice. And my next thing, which I'm really excited about, is a factory here.
Okay.
So we have plans to build this factory in LA. We're going to use all formerly incarcerated labor. I've been involved in incarceration related charities for years and years. I think it's a plague on our system. I think it's a plague for minorities. I just despise it. And my board member, Jason Flom, is head of the Innocence Project. He was Joe Rogan 2 weeks ago or whatever. Is heading up a lot of our hiring efforts to get the right people in. But I want to challenge the system here, and I want to challenge that incarceration system as well. And so you'll see more FutureStitch facilities popping up around the U.S. And I think, providing I can prove this thing out. There's a lot of risk. Don't get me wrong,
Right.
but that's exciting, man. It's really exciting to try some of this stuff out, especially on American soil, where you can really touch communities that live around you.
For sure. Thank you.
So I'm sorry.
No, go for it, brother.
Dominic.
Go ahead.
I know. I'm just flowing. I've just embraced the validity, but you can shut me up, man.
Keep spitting, brother. Keep spitting. Go ahead.
but as I'm looking at the economics, it makes sense as well. So if you can combine social mission with economics, you win. Like, okay, I saw the retention thing in a factory, right? I'm seeing the same thing here. I'm seeing people who get out of prison with almost zero prospects. No wonder they end up back in prison.
Right.
Like, they got to check a fucking box that says they've been arrested.
Right.
Like, how do you get out of that, man? They have 5 times the unemployment, right? And I'm looking at their retention. They have 3 times the loyalty, right? They just want that opportunity, and they're loyal to death. Most of these guys aren't born with the same chips. They're not born with the chips I had, right? Most of them are born in poverty. They don't have the education. They don't have both. They don't have a mom at home. At least a lot of them are like this, right? They're just not born. They don't have the same environment that you and I have, right? And so they get into the system, right? And it perpetuates itself. The rate of going back into prison is high, but 30% in most places, right?
That recidivism is a bitch. It is.
Recidivism is such a bitch.
It's a bitch.
And you give them you give them a prospect, and it changes. It drops to a third or less.
Right.
And I'm like, these guys want a job. I'm building factories in a way that challenges all the orthodoxies. Time back to the original conversation of my conditioning, right? That were formed since like World War II, when parents were telling their kids, "Hey, go to college, or else you're going to end up in the fields or the factory." Right? That's not the factory I built. That's not the factory I work in. And I can prove out that we can actually build a factory that's freaking amazing, that provides like way more than minimum wage, the wage that people can actually survive with, provide a roof over their head, get a car, right? Provide for a family, and that is just very unique when it comes to this labor pool. And I know that I'm going to get 3 times, probably even more than that, in terms of their retention, because these guys, they just want that chance, and I want to be the one to do that. I think it just feels right, feels good. It's not going to come without its struggles. I know, doing a lot of research into this thing, but everything we're building, from the Yeezy product we're working on, Dance, from Tom's deal we're doing, to FutureStitch brand itself, will be at all these different facilities and going direct to consumer.
For sure. No, I appreciate that. And I'm glad you said what you said, all of that, from, the recidivism part and paying people a decent wage, more than a decent wage, because I think a lot of times, Taylor, and you probably know exactly what I'm talking about. A lot of times entrepreneurs and businessmen, get this kind of messed up facade about them that like, oh, it's all about the money. It's nothing else but the money. But like you talk about social activism, you talk about, giving people a chance to provide for their families. That's not, that seems like the antithesis of that narrative. You know what I mean?
That's right.
And a lot more people need to hear. So I appreciate all that, brother.
Yeah. Thanks, man.
No worries.
Yeah. Capitalism can get a bad rap.
It does. It really does.
But I don't know a better catalyst for change. Just like, you got it. I think capitalism, I mean, you're seeing it now, right? I think society is going to force capitalism to become more responsible. I think, things are so transparent these days, and the consumers are more awake than ever, that you're going to see more and more of this. And if the company's not doing it, they're probably not going to last.
That's true.
Very long.
That's true.
And I don't have I can't say I've got like a ton of data to back this up, but based on my conversations with the consumer and based on, with what we've been doing, this is something that's going to create staying power. Quite frankly, capitalism needs to shift. Capitalism can be a threat. There's a lot of things that can be threats to humanity in general. I try to de-risk everything I do, but I also try to think about, okay, how do I community build to de-risk society? Which is one of the reasons why I have a factory in China, which is one of the reasons why I want to take this thing public in China and be the first white guy to take a company public in China. I just feel like that's important. I know there's a lot of people that would hate on that.
Right.
But I'm like, you know what? I want more vested interest. I don't want to decouple. I don't want to I want everybody to talk with each other and play at the same table, play in the same sandbox.
Right.
I think sharing toys is important. I think vested interest is important to facilitate relationships of trust. And I hate how society right now has become so distrustful, and in a lot of ways, right? And it's not like I don't get it. I mean, when people are locked indoors and unemployment's high, when you're here, when media is pushing all these negative things, you get it. It's furthering the distrust. But if we can create trust for meaningful trade and employment, right, for the right reasons, and you get your people equity so that they, if there is a liquidity event, they're actually seeing that rise with you, and you become that model of how capitalism should work, then just maybe you've created some good in this world.
All right, Startup Nation, so we're going to go ahead and take a quick break. We got to pay some bills. Once again, my name is Dominic Lawson, and you're listening to The Startup Life. This fresh coat of the Startup Life has been sprayed on nice and smooth by Wagner and the Flexo series of paint sprayers. Startup Nation, my wife decided she wanted to rehab her childhood home. The goal was to fix it up and invite a nice family to rent it out. We knew one of the biggest jobs we had to undertake was painting. However, from the walls, the cabinets, and even the siding outside, it was going to be a big task. As entrepreneurs with a company to run, we knew this was going to take up a lot of our time, which is why we decided to get a paint sprayer. And after much research, we decided to go with the sprayer from the Flexio series from Wagner. Startup Nation, these sprayers are top-notch because of its flexibility to paint or stain walls, furniture, cabinets, and more. It's 10 times faster than using a paintbrush, which was a big selling point for us. And you can paint or stain right from the can. It's also easy to clean in 5 minutes, and being great for indoor and outdoor projects, a paint sprayer from the Flexio series clearly needs to be part of the arsenal in your garage. So if you're ready to stain your deck, or like me, fill your daughter's request of a bubblegum pink room, up your game with a paint sprayer from the Flexio series by Wagner. Take it from me, your time will thank you. This episode is sponsored by Swanson Health. Startup Nation, Swanson Health has been producing quality vitamins and supplements, foods, healthy home, and self-care products for over 50 years. Since 1969, from the heart of America, Swanson Health carries over 20,000 wellness products at a great value. Pick up all of your favorite health products, plus discover new ones for your wellness routine, all while leaving money in your pocket. If you want to try any of Swanson Health's great products for yourself, use code STARTUP20 for 20% off at swanson.com. We have a link there in the show notes if you listen to the replay. This episode of The Startup Life is powered by Colony Spark. Startup Nation, with our economy in flux, there is a lot of mixed messaging out there. If there was ever a time to take control of the narrative and let your customers know that you're here to serve them, it's now. And that's why you have a friend in Colony Spark. Colony Spark is an omni-channel marketing agency that believes in the power of community to ignite your business. They have helped companies across many industries with lead generation, revenue growth, and more to put them on the path to success. My guy Bill Murphy and his team are very good at what they do. How do I know this? Because not many SEO companies have the stamp of approval of being partnered with Google. Yes, that Google. So I want you to go to www.colonyspark.com/startup to schedule a meeting today. In that meeting, you will review your current marketing activity, receive actionable advice on how to pivot and grow, and ask any marketing questions you may have on navigating over the next few months. Look, Startup Nation, I know things may seem uncertain right now, but if you are looking for a business partner that can help light the way, go with Colony Spark, where they firmly believe in business helping business. All right, Startup Nation, welcome back as we continue our conversation with today's guest here on The Startup Life.
For sure. You know what you talked about, because you talked. I think we talked a little bit off air that you do business in Israel, Turkey, and China. You've mentioned China a few times here in our conversation today. Kind of talk about because right now there's a lot of like you talked about the media, and like we talk about China and doing business with China, and and trade wars and stuff like that. Kind of talk about your experience with doing business in China, and also kind of talk about what's like maybe something that people don't know about doing business in China that maybe is like that kind of debunks a myth or something like that.
Yeah. Good. I could talk about this for hours. I'll try to keep it short.
For sure.
So listen, I have a core value system, right? When I develop any business plan, I start with values, then I go to mission, then I go to vision, which is kind of opposite of most people. Usually start with vision, and usually there's like all sorts of quantifiable things in the vision. That's not me. So values are really important to me. And I love democracy, and I love individualism. I think you can't. We're not going to be able to improve the human condition without it. I don't think collectivism wins. I think having a collective mindset, knowing that you're part of this external environment, you're trying to, and you're a byproduct of that to a certain extent is important, right? That you're not just like this unique organism who's all special and everything you do or say or believe really matters. I think that having some ability to see that from a macro perspective is important.
Right.
In China, I went there first. Actually, Taiwan is a Mormon missionary. That's where I started, learning Chinese, and then I studied in China. But Taiwan's very different than mainland China.
Right.
It's a democracy. So I went to mainland China, and I had a little bit of a culture shock, and realized that there was a stark difference in governance. But the people were the same. The people were good. And that was that's important to me. That's a core belief that I have, is that people are just good, man. I mean, you need police and regulation for 1%, maybe, right?
I believe that too.
That I think that hope's important.
Sure.
But went out there and I realized that there was a generosity and a kindness that was unparalleled. I was a recipient of all that, and of course, I'm cool with the government there. I've done some big projects in conjunction with different government entities and whatnot. Actually, on both sides, Pacific.
Right.
But I have done stuff there. I won't comment necessarily on the political side, although I want to say this is. I think they actually really do admire and love America and they just want to get some respect back. They've had a century of humiliation.
That's fair.
Where Western powers have taken advantage of.
That's
they're like the little brother in certain ways, and they just want to get like some recognition. And now there's some nefarious things that have occurred, right, in terms of like IP theft and stuff like that. And I think that's inherently wrong.
Right.
But I actually believe that by and large, the sentiment there is we don't want to decouple. We want to have friendly relations. We want to have an even playing field. We don't want to sit at the little kids' table. We want to join the banquet, with you guys. But I actually believe that inherently there is a desire to cooperate and collaborate. And I feel like when you throw out trust before mistrust, trust is reciprocated. And that's what I experienced. Honestly, I have partners in China. I have a cap table with like 6 Chinese investors. I have Israelis. I have New Zealanders, Australians, Italians, obviously a lot of Americans who are all on my cap table. And I'll say that I've never had partners anywhere on this planet, including here in my backyard, that are as trustworthy as the people I work with there. And so I know that there are bad people. While I do believe that humans are naturally good, like I said, there's a small fraction of people who will take advantage of you.
That's true.
You can't believe that is the norm, man.
Right.
You can't rely on that. That's just a horrible existence.
It is.
And so, I just try to create trust first. And quite frankly, I've not been let down. I've seen it come back, and I've seen like, people offer friendship everywhere, and I just believe that humans are all the same, no matter where you go. And I honor and respect people's culture. I don't believe in nation building. I don't believe in changing other people's governments per se. I believe that people should be happy and they should have rights to happiness. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
Like, I believe in individualism, like I said. But I do think that right now the problems that are occurring between the U.S. and China are hurting a lot of people, American consumers included. That's not to say that I don't think the U.S. should have a manufacturing system. It's not to say that I don't think the U.S. should be less reliant on one particular party and diversify. I think that that's just common business practice. But diversification is important for business, but you don't do it in spite, to create tension and in ways that could ultimately really harm a lot of people. And I'm terrified of that, and I don't live my life on fear at all. Like, I'm not a person that's really typically subjected to fear, but in this case, I'm just nervous about where we're heading as a nation in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And I love my country, and I'm glad to be doing this stuff here. But I'm doing it because I'm also a global citizen.
Right.
Like, I believe that the greatest risk to ourselves are governments, man. It's like big entities. You have nuclear weapons. Like, I'd rather be more power in the hands of people.
For sure.
And government get out of the way. That's core to my belief system. What I'm seeing right now is government hampering a lot of potential that we could be having if we just communicated better and had more symposiums of ideation and, focus on how we can progress with, social rights, climate, everything.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think, I agree with you 100%. Right. I think most people are inherently good. I know that's one of those big philosophical questions. Are people inherently good or are people inherently bad? Right. I think people are inherently good. I also think that 90% of people can be reasoned with. You're right. It's like, because I think a lot of times that we get on social media or whatever media that we're on, and we take a snippet of something and we're like, oh, that person is about all of that thing. Right. It's like, no, that's just we want that particular, opinion or whatever the case may be. But I think most people can be reasoned with. I think most people are inherently good. And I think you find that out and you fix some of the problems that we have just by just talk to somebody. Just talk to somebody.
Exactly.
Just get to know them. You know what I mean? Like, you'll find out they have the same hopes, same fears, same dreams, same goals, same, issues or whatever the case may be. It's like Maya Angelou says, you know what I'm saying? We're more alike than unalike. You know what I mean? And I just think that, a lot of people could do a lot better with listening to people and talking to people and getting to know people and stuff like that. One of the things that, which I think you do really well, Taylor, is that you just put good energy out there. You know what I mean? Because
thanks, man. I appreciate that. That's really important to me.
No, I can see that because, and I see maybe sometimes, if you were to kind of get taken advantage of, something like that, you just what? That was a blip. I'm not going to treat the other 99 people I come across because of that one person who decided to, I'm going to try to screw this dude over. And I just think if more of us just put good energy out there, we get good energy back. You know what I mean? And you also attract good energy, and people just want to be around you. And even when you head up a business and you're the lead captain on that ship of that business, people want to work hard for you. And I just believe that. Some people may think that's naive, but I just believe that. So I'm 100% on board with everything you just said, man, for sure.
Thanks, bro. Yeah.
No worries.
I appreciate that a lot.
No worries.
That means a lot to me.
No, I appreciate that. Once again, Startup Nation, we're actually wrapping up with Taylor Shupe, the co-founder of the venture BooSocki. We have a link there in the show notes for easy access if you're listening to the replay on the podcast. Look, man, I want to ask you this really quickly before we kind of start wrapping up for today, man. What's your entrepreneur superpower, man?
I think it's trust.
I hear that.
I think it's trust.
I hear that.
Yeah, I think I believe most people are adequately intelligent. I think most people could go out and run a business and be successful. I really believe that.
Yeah, I do too.
I think that. Yeah, I think that a lot of people are scared to do it, and I get it. I think it can be scary. One of my missions in life is to further in entrepreneurship, I think it's the entrepreneur fighting the orthodoxy. It's fighting the universe, which oftentimes wants entropy and destruction. Right? That is like that true champion of human progress. And so I'm a huge advocate of entrepreneurship and taking those risks. And I think it's just like you put that trust out there in yourself and in other people, and things just happen. They fall into place.
Right.
And like I said, I'm a product of other people's contributions. I'm an organism we share 50% of our DNA with all life on this planet. And I feel like we're all part of a system. And I want to further that system in any way, shape, or form I can, and be more outward thinking. And I think that core belief has allowed people to work with me that sometimes maybe gravitate towards distrust before trust.
Right.
And I hope anyway that I'm an example of somebody who does what they say they're going to do, no matter what it is. As small as it is. And I think that's, the power behind, what I've been able to do, because quite frankly, like, I know that most of the success I've had isn't because of my own efforts only. Most of it is because of other people engaging with me. And I love diversity. I love it. And I'm not talking about just black and white.
Right.
And I'm not talking about color of skin. I'm not even talking about just like religion. I'm talking about everything. I'm talking about where you grew up. I'm talking about how old you are. I'm talking about
diversity of thought.
Diversity of thought.
Right.
Diversity of that your idea pool gets larger. The probability of coming up with something really interesting and non-obvious also goes higher.
Right.
So, I like to have great connections with wonderful people who also like to make a difference. And I think that's probably, the superpower that I'm, if you could call it that, right? It sounds a little arrogant calling it a superpower.
I think it's a
superpower. I think, well, using your words, I think that is something that's provided a lot of value to me in my life, entrepreneurially, and also outside personally.
For sure. I appreciate you sharing all of that. And Startup Nation, like I said, I think, and Taylor, talks about it beautifully. I think as entrepreneurs and we're trying to figure out this COVID-19, I think trying to achieve that self-actualization is very critical, because I think you get to, move forward in life and just move forward unapologetically. And you get to kind of really maximize your potential and what you decide to become, what you decide to do. And I just appreciate our conversation today, man, for sure.
Yeah, me as well. Glad you had me on the show. Thank you.
No worries. So look, man, I'm actually going to turn the microphone over to you a little bit, man, because look, there's somebody out there who needs a little encouragement right now with everything going on. Just kind of give us some words of encouragement to take us out for today, if you don't mind, good sir.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a believer in karma. I'm a believer that when you do the right things, that things work out. And I've seen it in my life over and over and over again. I've had major ebbs and flows of business profitability. I remember at one point, my first enterprise was failing. I just lost Circuit City, which was my largest retailer at the time. I had a lot of bad debt. I owed people money. I remember going home and just sobbing to my wife. And I'm not a crier. I try to be. My wife tries to force me to shed a tear here and there, but I'm typically not crying. I'm just bawling. I'm like, hey, it's all on you, babe. I need your help here. And I'm so sorry, because I want to be that provider that you want me to be, but I just can't. And I'll tell you, those months were the most character building of my life. And I figured it out. Persistence beats resistance. It's just, you look at the Grand Canyon, that little trickle, it's probably started with a little trickle of water, right? That's what you can do as long as you continue to try. And so I am, like I said, a huge advocate of going out there and just trying. And I think entrepreneurship is a beautiful thing, because you're in control of your destiny, and of course there's market that can fight against you. You don't want to pick a fight with market, and there is some luck involved. Don't get me wrong, but the learnings that you get from going out there and trying your own thing are so massive. The character building is so massive. It gives you just greater perspective than you could ever imagine. and gets you in touch with people you'd have never fathomed you would have gotten in touch with. And it just is an enriching experience. And for those of you out there who are struggling, who are unemployed, or they're contemplating, building a business plan, I would say do it. Just do it. And you're going to be successful. Whether or not you make a ton of money doesn't really matter. You're going to be successful. All right. You're going to build something inside of you that's going to lift your confidence. That's going to be exhilarating, and you're going to build some relationships that you wouldn't have gotten otherwise. So,
right.
I guess that's my 2 cents.
No, I appreciate that. Thank you so much. And that's going to wrap up our time with Taylor Shupe. I appreciate you, brother.
Yeah, you too, Dominic.
No worries. And
Great
as always,
comment.
Startup Nation, if you have an idea, be about that life, the startup life.
If you want to let us know what you think about our show, have an idea for a show topic, or would like to advertise on our show, send us a message on the Startup Life Podcast Facebook page. And while you are there, like and follow our page as well. It's a great way for us to engage with you, Startup Nation, and really grow our community. The link is there in the show notes. Subscribe to the show, as it can be heard on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher Radio, Spotify, or even on your Facebook timeline or any other platform you like to get your podcast. If you are listening on Apple Podcasts and you find our content valuable, please give us a 5-star rating, as it will help us climb the charts and help more people find our show. You can also listen to the show on the Startup Life Podcast new website. There you will find the all-new startup blog, where I write on many topics that are interesting and helpful to you on your path to entrepreneurship. And hey, if you have an idea, be about that life, the startup life.